Right now, behind nearly every diner, fast food kitchen, and restaurant in your town, there are drums of used cooking oil that the owner is literally paying someone to haul away. That oil is fuel, real, combustible, engine-powering fuel, and it has been available to any American with a diesel vehicle for over a century for nothing. What you are about to learn is not a new idea. It is one of the oldest ideas in the history of the engine. A German engineer documented it in 1897, proved it publicly in front of an international crowd in 1900, and predicted in a speech in 1912 that this method would one day matter as much as petroleum itself. He was right, and within a year of saying so, he was dead, his body pulled from the English Channel. What happened to his original vision is a story that explains exactly why you have been paying $3, $4, $5 a gallon your entire adult life for something that should have cost you almost nothing. Stay with me until the end of this, because the last thing I am going to show you is a technique documented by a researcher at a USDA-affiliated agricultural extension program. One that lets any diesel vehicle owner in this country walk away from the pump permanently, using equipment that costs less than $200 and raw material that restaurants in your zip code are desperate to give away for free. Let us start with what actually happened in 1897, because almost nobody knows this part. Rudolph Diesel was not a petroleum man. He was a thermodynamics engineer who believed deeply and in writing that centralized energy monopolies were a threat to ordinary people. His original compression ignition engine, the machine that his name is now permanently attached to, ran its first public demonstration on peanut oil, not petroleum, not kerosene, peanut oil. In 1897, in a test laboratory in Augsburg, Germany, the very first viable diesel engine ran on a fuel any farmer could grow in a field. 3 years later, in 1900, at the World Exhibition in Paris, that same class of engine ran publicly on 100% peanut oil, and according to the accounts left behind, the audience watching did not even notice. The engine ran smoothly, it ran cleanly, the bystanders could not tell the difference. Diesel himself noted the event, and in a presentation to the Institution of Mechanical Engineers in London in 1912, he said these exact words: "The use of vegetable oils for engine fuels may seem insignificant today, but such oils may become, in the course of time, as important as petroleum." He said that in 1912. 13 months later, he was on a passenger ship crossing the English Channel from Belgium to England, and he never arrived. His body was recovered days later from the water. His death was ruled accidental. It has never been conclusively explained. Now, I am not going to tell you what happened to Rudolph Diesel on that ship. What I will tell you is what happened to his idea afterward. Because that part is completely documented, completely verifiable, and completely infuriating. Here is who profits from you not knowing any of this, and here is exactly how much they make. Americans burned approximately 138 billion gallons of gasoline in 2024, at an average pump price that hovered between $3 and $4 per gallon for most of that year. We are talking about a retail fuel market that extracts somewhere between $400 and $500 billion out of American households every single year. Not the oil companies' revenue globally, just American consumers. Just at the pump, just for gasoline and diesel, the American Petroleum Institute, the trade association representing nearly 600 oil and gas companies, spent over $4 million in a single year lobbying the federal government against expanded biofuel access. In 2022, when you were paying record prices at the pump, Exxon reported $55 billion in profit in 1 year. The four largest oil companies together posted combined sales of $1 trillion. In the same period, the oil and gas industry's combined lobbying political contributions, and advertising efforts outspent clean fuel advocacy groups by a margin of 27-1, according to an analysis published by the Pennsylvania Capital Star. Here is the specific decision that explains why you cannot walk into any car dealership and buy a flex fuel vehicle that runs on waste cooking oil. In the spring of 2025, the ethanol and biofuel lobbies, representing farmers, corn growers, and small fuel producers, spent more than $9 million lobbying Congress to allow year-round sale of E15, a fuel blend that simply contains more plant-based ethanol. They outspent the oil refiners. They had bipartisan support. They had documented evidence that it would lower pump prices. And oil refiners, spending comparatively almost nothing, killed the measure. The National Corn Growers Association president said publicly, and I am paraphrasing here, that Congress chose a handful of refineries over 500,000 American farmers. That is not a conspiracy. That is a business decision. If your product costs the consumer $400 billion a year and a competing fuel costs them close to nothing, you protect your market. You do it through lobbying, through regulatory pressure, through contract arrangements that keep restaurant chains from giving their used oil to individuals, and through decades of building a fueling infrastructure so dominant that the alternative feels impossible. It is not illegal. It is not hidden. It is just expensive for you. Now, if you are thinking this only works if you start from scratch, if you are sitting there thinking you already own the vehicle you own, you already live where you live, and you cannot afford a new engine or a conversion project that sounds complicated, stay with me. Because this next part is specifically for you. I want to be direct about something. This is not a gasoline story. If you drive a gasoline-only car, the most relevant parts of this for you are the fuel additive techniques at the end. But if you drive any diesel-powered vehicle, a pickup truck, a van, an SUV, a tractor, you are already sitting on an engine that Rudolph Diesel intended from the beginning to run on plant oil. You have not been locked out of this. You have just not been told. Here is what matters right now, this weekend, without buying any new equipment. The first step is finding your feedstock. That is the term for the raw material, in this case, waste vegetable oil, which the industry calls WVO. Behind almost every independent restaurant, diner, and fast food kitchen in America, there is a collection drum or a holding tank full of used cooking oil. Large national chains are generally under contract with commercial grease collection companies, so those are harder to access. But the local independent diner 4 blocks from your house, the Mexican restaurant on the corner, the fish and chips place, call them, walk in and ask to speak to the owner. Tell them you want to take their used cooking oil off their hands for free. Many of them are currently paying a grease hauler to remove it on a schedule. You are offering to save them that appointment. What most people do not realize is that a gallon of used cooking oil and a gallon of diesel fuel contain nearly identical stored energy. The British thermal unit content, the BTU value of vegetable oil, is very close to petroleum diesel. The plants that produce that oil captured solar energy. When you fry food in it, you use a fraction of that energy for heat. The rest is still there, still dense, still combustible. The oil sitting in that drum behind the diner has already done one job, it has another one left. Now, there are 2 ways to use this material as fuel, and the difference between them matters. The first way is called biodiesel. It is the chemically processed version. You take the waste oil, you add methanol, which you can buy at race car supply shops, and you add a small amount of sodium hydroxide, which is lye, available at most hardware stores as a drain cleaner component. The chemical reaction that follows is called transesterification. It breaks the fat molecules in the oil into a clean fuel called a methyl ester. A gallon of used cooking oil yields approximately a gallon of biodiesel. According to a guide published by ATRA, the National Sustainable Agriculture Information Service, which is funded by USDA, the total production cost when your feedstock is free runs somewhere around $1 per gallon, and that dollar is almost entirely the cost of the methanol and chemicals. The resulting fuel runs in any diesel engine without modification. Ford Powerstroke, GM Duramax, Dodge Cummins, all certified to run on B20 biodiesel blends, and many handle higher concentrations without issue. Mother Earth News has published step-by-step documentation on this process going back decades. The second way is simpler. It requires a small engine modification, but no chemistry at all. It is called a two-tank system, or a straight vegetable oil setup. Here is how it works. You add a second small fuel tank to your diesel vehicle, plumbed separately from the main diesel tank. The main tank holds regular diesel for starting and for shutting down the engine. Once the engine reaches operating temperature, the engine heat also heats the WVO in the secondary tank through a heat exchanger on the coolant line. When the oil is hot, its viscosity drops close to that of petroleum diesel. You flip a valve, and you are running on fuel that cost you nothing. Before you stop the vehicle, you flip back to diesel for a few minutes to purge the vegetable oil from the fuel lines and injectors so the oil does not congeal overnight. People on the Diesel Stop forums have documented running this system for 100,180,000 miles without issues. The feedstock is free. The chemicals for biodiesel cost about $1 per gallon. The two-tank modification can be built for around $200 in parts. Now, I want to tell you the specific thing I found during my research that I have not seen in any consumer guide, any mainstream article, or any YouTube video in this space. This is what I promised at the beginning, and this is the part that made me genuinely angry when I found it. There is a document published by the Rochester Institute of Technology, prepared for a USDA-connected program called the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute. It describes a complete biodiesel production program designed for community and institutional use, farms, schools, municipal fleets. Buried inside the technical guidelines is a section on feedstock testing called titration. Here is what it means for you personally. Used cooking oil from different restaurants has different levels of free fatty acids, and the level changes depending on what was cooked and what type of oil was used. If you do not account for this, your batch of biodiesel can come out wrong with too much unreacted oil and engine deposits over time. The problem sounds technical. The solution is not. You can test any batch of waste oil yourself with 3 items: a small amount of isopropyl alcohol, a few drops of phenolphthalein solution, which you can order online for under $10, and a measured amount of dissolved lye in water. You add drops of the lye solution to the isopropyl and oil mixture until the color turns pink and stays pink for 30 seconds. The number of drops tells you exactly how much extra lye to add to your batch. The entire test takes 4 minutes. You do it once per drum of oil. This one piece of information is the difference between someone who tried biodiesel once, had a problem, and gave up, and someone who has been driving for free for 12 years. It is the quality control step that separates hobbyist results from reliable fuel. It was sitting in a government technical document the whole time. Nobody put it on the evening news. Nobody ran it as a consumer tip. And the people who profit from your fuel bill had every reason in the world to make sure it stayed exactly where it was. Rudolph Diesel said in 1912 that vegetable oil fuel would one day matter as much as petroleum. He was talking about the world he hoped would exist. He was describing the world that the industry that uses his name made sure would not. He wanted farmers to grow their own fuel, communities to control their own energy, and individuals to be free of centralized dependency. That is not what happened. What happened is that his engine was redesigned after his death to require only petroleum diesel, and his original vision was reclassified as an interesting footnote in engineering history. It is not a footnote, it is a functional, documented, legally producible fuel that any diesel vehicle owner in this country can make for about $1 a gallon or less, using material that restaurants will hand you for free in all 50 states today. You spent your whole working life paying a market that was built on top of a decision somebody else made 100 years ago. You did not make that decision. You were not asked. You were handed a price at the pump and told to pay it. The drums behind the diner in your town are full right now. The math has not changed. The chemistry has not changed. What changed is that you know about it. If you are the kind of person who believes that real, documented, practical knowledge has been sitting on a shelf somewhere while an industry collected your money, you already know what to do next. Drop your current monthly fuel cost in the comments, not what gas costs where you live, what you actually spend on fuel every month. I want to see the real number, because the industry has a number too, and it is $400 billion a year of yours. If you are done contributing to that number, there are people here doing exactly what this video described. Hit subscribe and join them, not because it helps this channel, because the next video covers the home heating oil version of this exact same system, and the cost difference is even more offensive than the gasoline one.